Hi, fourth grade. This is Mrs. Howard, a math coach, and I'm here to do number sense with you today. Today we're going to do What's My Rule? I'm going to give you a series of numbers to try and guess what rule I used. When you look at these numbers, I want you to think about the four operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Your goal is to find the rule for the series of numbers. Then, in a Google Doc, you're going to justify and explain your thinking. Let's take a look at the first series of numbers. You have 640, 160, 40, 10. Now, you're going to pause this video, and on a piece of paper or in a Google Doc, you will show the pattern and justify and explain your thinking with my rule. Welcome back. Let's take a look at the second series of numbers. We have 30, 60, 120, 240, and 480. What's my rule? Pause the video, and on a piece of paper or in a Google Doc, you will show the pattern with my rule and justify and explain your thinking. Last one. Let's take a look at this last series of numbers. 20, 60, 180. What number would come next? Pause this video, and again, on your piece of paper in your Google Doc, show the pattern with my rule, finish the sequence, and justify and explain your thinking. And I'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back. On your paper, you should have written your justify and explaining for each of these three number series. So for example, from 640 to 160, if I were to show somebody this piece of paper, they would be able to see what this pattern is because I showed it with the operation that I needed to use for this rule. Now, let's talk about each of these number series. So let's start with number one. We start with 640 and go to 160. When I look at that, that's a large jump. So I might want to go and look at the last two numbers in that series and think about how do I start at 40. How do I go from 40 to 10? Which operation would I be using? Well, if I think about multiplication, would I get from 40 to 10 using multiplication? Probably not. What about division? Could division work for this? What do I know about 40 and 10 with that relationship between multiplication and division? Well, I know that 4 groups of 10 is 40, so can I divide by 4 to get to 10? And is that true if I look at 160 to go to 40? If I have 4 groups of 40, would I get to 160? And we know that this is 80, and we know that 80 plus 80 is 160. So I could say that 160 divided by 4 would be 40 because there's that relationship between multiplication and division. So then we could say that 640 to 160 would be dividing by 4. Let's take a look at this next number sequence. What do you notice about 30 to 60? I could add 30 to get to 60, but can I add 30 to get from 60 to 120? Well, 60 plus 30 is only 90, so it can't be addition. Well, I know that I doubled here. I took 30 plus 30 to get 60, and that's a double, which in multiplication, in doubling, that would work. I wonder if it would work if I went from 60 to 120. Well, what is 60 times 2, or 2 groups of 60? So if I had 2 groups of 60, would that get me 120? Yes. So 60 times 2 would be 120. Let's see if this pattern, this rule, will continue. So if I have 120 and I want to get to 240, and I'm going with this rule of doubling, I would have to do 2 groups of 120. So 120 plus 120, does that make 240? Yes, 240. So we're doubling 120. And then let's make sure that it works for the last one, 240 to 480. If I have 2 groups of 240, is that the same as 480? Well, if I have 200 plus 200, that gives me 400. And if I have 40 plus 40, that gives me 80. Yes, I have 480. So far, we have a rule of divide by 4 in the first series and a multiply by 2 in the second series. Let's take a look at this third series. In this series, we have 20, 60, 180, and then we had a missing number. So let's see. When I think about going from 20 to 60, I'm not subtracting. I could add 40, but if I add 40 here, I would get to 60. But would I get to 180 if I just added 40 here from 60 to 180? 60 plus 40, well, that just gets me to 100. So I know that adding would not work. And I know it's not subtraction because my numbers are getting bigger. And I know it's not division because my numbers are getting bigger. So it must be multiplication. So let me think. What do I know about 20 and 60? Well, I know that 2 groups of 3 is 6. So 20 times 3 would be 60. So from 20 to 60, I had to multiply it by 3. Let's continue this rule and see if it works. So if I took 60 times 3, would I get 180? Well, let's see. 60 times 3. Well, I know that 6 times 3 is 18. But I'm not just using 6. I have 60, so I have 6 groups of 10 there. So I would have 60 times 3, which would be 180. And I could prove that by taking 60 and adding it 3 times. So if I have 60 and 60, I know that's 120. And then add another 60, and I would get 180. So what would this unknown number be? Well, we'd have to take 180 times 3. 180 times 3. What do I know that can help me solve this equation? Well, if I think about it, I know that 180 is 100 plus 80. And I have to take that times 3. So 100 times 3 would give me what? 300. Now I have to do 80 times 3, which I know that 8 times 3 is 24. But I don't just have 8. I have 8 groups of 10. So it would be 240. 300 plus 240 equals 540. So the next number in the sequence would be 540. Awesome job today. Submit your answers onto your Google Classroom the way your teacher would like you to do it. Have a great day.